Hello, welcome to Living and Dying, the show that brings you everything you need to know about the Brattleboro Area Hospice, its people and its activities and its programs. My name is Richard Ewald, and I'm a hospice volunteer. On this beautiful summer day in mid-June 2014, we are seizing the day by speaking with Tammy Sauve and Cindy Hutcheson. Tammy is a client of hospice, and Cindy is one of the two volunteers that are lucky enough to spend their time with Tammy. And Tammy is fresh off a little program that she conducted with the Brattleboro Hospice Volunteer Training Program. This is a program, 11-week program that folks go through who want to be a hospice volunteer, and Tammy came to speak to them from the point of view of someone who is actively dying. So we are very happy to be with you today.
Thank you.
And Cindy, thanks for coming back.
Oh, you're welcome.
What prompted you to volunteer to speak to the volunteers?
Well, I actually saw Cindy on this very program, and she was talking about visual work, and I was so impressed by what was being said, and I thought, oh gosh, I wish I could do that. And I thought about it, and I thought, I realize I probably don't have the energy that I could give to the people that really need it. And I thought, what else could I do? Is there something I could do? And I thought maybe I could talk to other people that are dying or that are, just newly diagnosed with, terminal illness. And so I mentioned that to the volunteer coordinator, and she says, well, come and talk with our hospice class, our volunteer class. And I was all excited, and so I did, and it was wonderful. I really had a good time. The people, the class, they asked wonderful questions. I told them to ask me anything, and I was really impressed with the questions that they asked.
And those questions probably led back pretty far in your entire experience with cancer and your own experience, your family experience, and all of that. And you shared a little bit before we started, and perhaps you could just pick up the thread of that again.
Okay. Well, I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2003, and I went through chemotherapy, radiation, and about 3 years later, due to the type of chemo, it damaged my heart. So I have cardiomyopathy, which is terminal. So in my case, a heart transplant isn't an option because I've had cancer. It's kind of learning to live with the fact that you have this, and the percentages and all those things, the expiration dates that they give you are a little tough, but you try to work through that.
This is a double whammy. You go for a cure, a treatment,
right,
and it winds up making things worse. That was probably unpleasant.
Yeah.
And a very, what did you about the anger about that?
The treatment is.
You were a little bit angry, I'll bet.
The cancer hasn't come back. I'm thankful for that. But the treatment is what's going to end my life. And I can be honest, in the beginning, I cried. I cried a lot because, they were giving me 5 years or less. And that was hard to take, my family and myself. And then the anger comes in after that. And then you have to look at it and decide, how am I going to live with this? In my case, it's not maybe your typical cancer diagnosis or some terminal illnesses where you have a gradual decline. That could happen, but most likely it will be sudden. And how do I live with the fact that I can die anytime? Not going to have necessarily a lot of warning. And that was scary. And I had to kind of work through that, and finally I had to look at it and say, I'm either going to use my time worrying that I'm going to die, or I'm going to live until I do. And not that I can do that every day, but most of the time I can. And life is better. I have a better quality of life now. And thankfully to the wonderful volunteers that I have through the Brattleboro Hospice, they have wonderful people that volunteer, and they've really added to my life.
Cindy, what has this been like for you to be working with or being with Tammy?
I think the hardest thing once we take on a client is, you know, you get the call and you assume that it's going to be an older person. I think the hard thing is when it is a contemporary of yours, you see the age on the paper that you're given, you know, name, address, and then when you walk into their home or wherever they are and you see them, you think, oh my gosh, you know, this person's my age. That always is a little jarring for me. The two folks that I've had have both been contemporaries, Tammy and my first client. But then, for me, it dissipates. You know, we sit right down and we talk about stuff and our kids and what do you like to do, where did you work, and then it's like, you know, it's like a weekly coffee clutch. You get together for a couple of hours, you shoot the breeze, you have a cup of tea, you know, watch a movie, go to the grocery store, go for a walk. So it's nice that Tammy is mobile, you know, so we can do things, we can go out, we can go shopping. Tammy doesn't drive because she's legally blind, so that really cuts down on a lot of her getting out and about. So it's nice when the weather is nice that myself and Lori, the other client volunteer, we can take her places. We can take her to the grocery store to do errands or just go for a drive, because Tammy is somewhat isolated. You know, she has a family, everybody works full time, so it's hard. So it's nice that she's able to get out and about, and yeah, I feel bad when I can't come. You know, I call and say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't come, and she's on the other end of the line going, it's okay, it's okay. And then we sit on the phone and talk for half an hour. Yeah, so.
Well, one of the things the coordinators try to do, and the volunteer coordinators, is try to match people, compatible people. And it sounds like this has worked. This has been a very good match.
Yes.
Generally speaking, what do you look for in a volunteer? I mean, this is a new experience for you, too, to have someone coming into your home. And
Well, it's kind of interesting when Cheryl talked to me, the volunteer coordinator at the time, talked to me about, you know, getting volunteers. And I'm like, gosh, I don't think I really need that. You know, I'm not sure. I kind of felt funny about it or uncomfortable. And I remembered when my first husband, he died of cancer at the age of 35. And I didn't know about hospice at the time. And I had a 3-year-old and an 11-year-old at home. And he died. He died at home. And the day that he was dying, somebody said to me, why don't you give hospice a call? They can come and watch the little 3-year-old, because it was obviously a very stressful time. And it was so wonderful because this person came, I didn't know them. They just came and took him outside, and you know, just it was such a relief for that, you know, that brief time. And then when Cindy and Lori came, you know, it's like at first I was like, okay, I'll do it. And then I was so happy that I did, and we've had so much fun. I mean, went out for ice cream, and we laugh, and, you know, I mean, they say funny things about, you know, dying, and have actually helped me get through some of that stuff. And
I know Cindy has said, don't die while I'm driving you somewhere.
Right,
Yeah.
she does.
Yeah, please don't do that.
Yeah, so I tell her I'll try to.
Try your best.
I'll do my
Just
best.
for you.
I'll
Just for
do
you.
my
Just for you.
best. So, but I think, you you know, it's really, it's actually something that I hope other people that might be watching this, that, you know, try or take a chance with the volunteers, because they really, really can help. And when I first went on hospice, I really, even myself, I believed I only had a few months. I like to try to think that I'm going to live longer, and I think that has helped, but I was in pretty bad shape. And just having these volunteers coming and having adult interaction and someone that cares about you coming and visiting you was tremendous. And I mean, I've come a long ways back. You know, I'm a little stronger. You know, can get out a little bit, and I still have bad days where I'm just exhausted and I can't, or I sleep all day because I'm just too tired. But knowing that they're going to come, I know that Cindy's going to come on Wednesday, and Lori's going to come on Sunday, and so I look forward to it now.
How long did it take to go from the "Oh, here comes a stranger" to "Oh, here comes Cindy"?
I think it was maybe a couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty quickly that we kind of hit it off. And when they first both came, I was in the process of, I thought I was only had a few months to live, so I was going through everything and getting rid of everything I could, because I thought, I don't want my family to have to do this. And so they helped me go through pictures, go through stuff, get stuff to hospice, you know, it was wonderful help. They really were a tremendous, tremendous help. So.
One of the stories you told us before we went on camera was about taking the cross-country trip. Well, you have two boys.
I have two
boys. And they are in their early 20s?
One's early 20s and the other one's early 30s.
Okay.
And I do have 4 stepchildren too, which I love very much. And but my youngest son lives with us still, and he wanted to travel with me because we had to.
And you were traveling across the country all the way to California?
To California, yeah. My son moved to Santa Barbara, so he bought a house and wanted me to come see it. And since his father isn't here, I thought, I really have to make this trip. And I was nervous about it because I wasn't sure I was strong enough. And, you know, the fears kind of were, am I going to live long enough to make the trip? Then I had to think about what happens if I die on the train.
So you had to have the conversation with the person on the phone from Amtrak.
Yeah. So the Amtrak, and she was so funny.
And you asked her point blank.
I said, I got to ask you a question, but I kind of need to know, what would happen if you die on the train? And she was so sweet. She goes, well, my word, I don't know. I've never had anyone ask me that question before, but let me check into that. So she did, and she came back and said that they put me in cold storage and they'll get me to my destination. So I thought, well, I will make the trip.
Now that's service.
So my son was, you know, he was a little relieved then to know that he would make it to his brother or he'd make it back home. So, but it was an interesting, you know, kind of an interesting thought process that you have to go through when you're thinking about, you know, that, or, you know, or making plans. You know, people ask, do you make plans? And I do make plans, but sometimes I can't help but wonder, you know, it's 2 weeks down the road. I wonder if I will get to do that. And then the process goes through my brain. I got to kind of process it. And then it's like, okay, I'm going to make it. I'm going to do it. And I used to joke about having a condo on the Denial River because I thought it just seemed easier. It seemed better to live sort of in denial that this is a reality. And I thought, does it matter? It really doesn't matter. I mean, do I really have to think about the fact that I'm going to die? And then I thought, it's not hurting anybody if I don't go there. So, you know, sometimes I do go there.
So you have a condo on Denial, is that what you're saying?
On the Denial River, yeah. So I visit
Well, there's a
from
big
time
D
to
and there's a
time.
little d. you know, and there's a getting through the day, and there's the, you know, living with an oppressive thought, or there's having the thought but not letting it get oppressive, which sounds like you've made that change. You've made that transition. And
I think, I know one of the difficult thoughts that I had, that actually the Vermont Hospice, which there's Brattleboro Volunteer Hospice, and then there's the Medical Vermont Hospice, which I am also on. And they kind of work together, but they do very different kind of jobs. And she kind of helped me work through. Of course, I'm sitting in the front room, it's quiet, and I'm looking around, and I'm thinking about when my husband died. And I thought, you know, I remember what it was like. I'd come home and he's not there. All of his stuff was there. It seemed like he should be there. You know, you're waiting for them to come back through the door. And I was thinking, that's what they're going to go through. And that was hard for me, because I remember that was hard. You know, when you're going through that, and you have a lot of people that are there for you when they first pass away, but their lives go back to normal, and yours doesn't, and you have to, you know, it's different. It's forever altered, and when I think about that, you know, I can get a little teary with that, because I think about my family and how they're going to have to now go through that. And I wish I could take that away, but I can't, and I know that. So sometimes I do think about that. You know, it is a reality, and but we have a lot of fun. We laugh a lot. We have some pretty funny things about dying and death, that when that's going to happen, that you can kind of look at it and you can make jokes about it that someone else can't.
Well, you've had, I was going to say, you've had some practice at this, because I think the typical cancer diagnosis experience is, I'm going to die. And then there's that peak emotional response, and then we manage to settle into it somehow, and then we start to deal with the decisions to make, and then the treatments and what to do about it, and talking to people about it, and then things sort of settle down. But then the thought has been lodged, though, that something has changed here, and this could be it. And then you started getting treatment with the hopeful, I'm going to come out of this, and it has. Your treatment has addressed the cancer, but unfortunately it had this other effect, which is, in a way, even worse about it. So you sort of entered that world of thinking about it, and then sort of probably got to a more hopeful place about recovery and continuing to live, and even though you're past the expiration date now, as you described it.
A few different times, yeah.
You're living in this moment where you could physically not be able to get any oxygen. Right.
Well, I was diagnosed with the cardiomyopathy in 2007, or 2006. I had an event. I kind of laugh about that, because I used to love planning parties, and we'd have all kinds of events, and now my events are a little different.
Oh, these are
now I kind of don't want my events to happen. But the big event was 2010, and I went into cardiac arrest, and of course my husband was sure that I wasn't coming home, but I made it through that night, and I was in a drug-induced coma for 11 days at Dartmouth, in the hospital for 21 days, and they said, you aren't gonna, we don't think you're going to make it, more than a few months. Maybe you're looking at 8, or something, and so of course we cry and we think about that and say, okay, well, I'm going to make those months the best they can be. And it's like in the beginning too, when you're diagnosed with this, you your first thoughts after you kind of get past the fear and family, you start thinking, well, I've got to do all these things because I'm going to die. I've got to hurry up. And, you know, and it took me a little while to realize that I actually don't have to climb Mount Everest. I don't have to make every moment does count. I mean, you're doing something with each of your minutes, and they're precious. But that it's okay to just sit calmly or visit with a friend, or it doesn't have to be a hurried frenzy of activity because you're dying. And you have to hurry up and get all your stuff on your bucket list done. It's like you don't actually have to. It's okay to enjoy those moments without the frenzy. And sometimes you do want that. Sometimes if you happen to be a mountain climber, Mount Everest might be where you need to go. But, you know, for me, life became easier and more, I think, enjoyable, or a calmness. I think a calmness came over me when I realized that it's okay to use my minutes kind of softly too. I don't have to cram everything into, because I've only got so much time.
There's the doing and there's the being. And it sounds like you've figured out the being part.
Yeah. It's like
So
you have to decide, you know, do you live in fear, or do you live? And, you know, I choose to live.
So, and I'm sorry for ignoring your companion Gertrude for so long, but Gertrude, your oxygen tank has then been your constant companion since 2011? Is that or thereabouts?
Actually, she's only been my friend about the last 2 years. So she does go everywhere with me. But that was a little difficult too, because each little piece, you know, it's like, okay, now we're gonna need to put you on oxygen. Oxygen levels are low, and you're like, oh, that means I don't have very much time to live again. Now I'm going through that again. But, you know, I finally, it's like, it's okay. And I do pretty good with it. I don't always have to have it, but it's there when I need it, and it's not so bad now, you know, so.
What exactly did you have to go through again?
The thought of, I'm sick again. I am sick, and sometimes it's hard for me to really.
You sort of forget it sometimes.
I prefer to sort of forget it. That's that denial river I like to live on. And then so it's like, when that happened, it's kind of like with the cancer, when your hair first falls out. It's like, oh my gosh, I really am sick. I look like a burn patient when it first comes out. And, you know, so it's the same kind of thing. It's like if something happens, it's like, oh, a little bit more of me isn't the same. But then you figure out how you can be more in another way. And, you know, and it's so amazing how our bodies, we really do want to live. You know, even when we get sick, you know, we want to live. And for me, I mean, I have a wonderful hope. I'll just mention that a little bit. I don't have a fear of death, of dying. I have a fear of the process that will get me there, but I'm not really afraid of dying or what happens after that. I am one of Jehovah's Witnesses, so my hope is a little different than some. I have a hope of being resurrected on earth in a paradise condition. The earth will be restored, and all my loved ones and them will be resurrected on earth and be able to live in a paradise with no more sickness or death or any of those things anymore. So it's a very positive way of looking at it, knowing that I'm really going to sleep in death until I'm awoken, you know, from that. So, but the fear of that frenzy of not being able to breathe, and, you know, that is scary, that part. And even that I had to kind of work through.
And what do you turn to when you have that almost claustrophobic feeling, I'm not going to be able to breathe, some moment will come when I won't be able to breathe, and then I will, or what I do is...
Yeah, it is a scary thought, because when you can't get air, even if you got the oxygen going and you just you're trying to get air and you can't, you feel like you're suffocating. I mean, you want to cry, but you know if you cry it's going to be worse. You can't get up, you can't do anything, and it is quite, you can become frenzied with it. But I do have medication. I have morphine and lorazepam that can work very quickly, and I used to always be terrified that that's what was going to happen, but I kind of, again, had to the social worker kind of helped me work through the thoughts of breaking it down and realizing that worst case scenario, I'm going to have to suffer about 20 minutes before the morphine kicks in. So I know that, it's kind of hard to hear, but I'm either going to die in that 20 minutes or I'm going to get past that 20 minutes and it won't really, I'm in a state where it doesn't really matter. So far I've come out of them okay, but nonetheless they're scary, and you think this is it, you really do. So that part is a little hard. But I had to figure out somehow to come to grips with it, and the social worker through the VNA medical hospice, she helped me work through that, and I'm not afraid of that now. It's much different. I have a calmness about me that wasn't there before, so that part's good.
Very good. That's a strong piece of work.
Yeah.
To be able to come to the other side of it, to have that thought and then do something else with that thought and still be here.
And to realize that, it's fear is a thought. Fear is not going to kill you. Fear is there for our protection. It helps us run if we're chased by a tiger. But fear can be crippling. But if you can look at it and try to dissect it and see, what is it that I'm afraid of? What is the fear about? And it's almost like you come to an understanding of what it is, and it's like, actually, it's not quite as bad as I thought it was, and that's how you have to kind of work through that, because otherwise that fear creeps up, and it you're always having to kind of work on it, new angles, because it's like your brain's always trying to figure out something for you to worry about. So.
And what's it like for you to be in sort of in the sphere of that potential fear? That is hers, that's yours, that's all of ours.
There was only, I actually don't think about it. There was only one time where I thought about it. We were driving, and she started to crash with her sugars. And she got to the point where she couldn't speak. She wasn't making any sense. And I was talking to her, and all of a sudden she stopped talking, and I looked over, and I could just tell she was kind of coasting down. And I didn't know what to do. And she just said, I just need a power drink. So I pulled into a convenience store, and I just got a power drink and gave it to her. And she drank it, and slowly she came back. But that's why I don't want it in the car. It's scary. And, we talked about all this.
Sure.
I know where the morphine is in her home. I know her husband's cell phone number. I know how to reach her son. And I feel very calm with her son there, because I know that he's going to know the right thing to do. And he's going to look to me, and I'm going to look to him. But I'm I'm prepared to be with Tammy in that moment, and I'm, I think Lori and I both are, and we both know what's happening, and we both know what we're thinking at the same time. And I think that we're comforted by that.
Tammy, thank you for sort of going public. There's so many folks who go through what you're going through, and they need to do something else. They need to kind of close the doors and stay very private with it. And you've done that, but you're also doing this part, which is a blessing for all of us.
Well, thank you.
To be with you during this time.
Thank you.
You and Gertrude would be with you.
Yeah, even Gertie. Yeah, I think it's, it is important for people on both sides, those that are dying, those that are taking care of people that are dying, to not be so afraid to ask those questions, because people that are dying do need to talk about it. And the wonderful thing is when you get a volunteer, you can actually talk to your volunteer about things that maybe you don't feel comfortable with your family because you don't want them to hurt or that, but they are hurting already. So, sometimes, it's trying to come to that place where it's not so scary to talk about.
And for people for whom it is scary to talk about it, if I know you and I run into you on the street and I see you with the oxygen, and what can I say? What's the awkwardness, the things that the wrong things people say that I've said, we've all said. What's the right thing? What works for you? Well,
I mean, the best thing you can say is, I'm sorry, I don't really, I feel for you. I don't understand what you're going through, but I want to be here to help. And is there anything I can do? And a lot of times people just want to be able to talk. That's an important thing. But, a lot of people, which I've found to be true in my situation, that actually people avoid you because they're afraid, because they don't know what to say. And, they'll cross the street when they see you coming, or they just don't stop. They don't stop by because they don't know it's their fear, not knowing what to say. And so to be able to just say, I don't know what to say, but I want to be here. I want to be with you. And that alone can just ease it for the person that's coming to talk to you, because if they don't know what to say, it's nice to know this is what you could say. And then for the person that they're talking to, it's much easier than, I had one person tell me that, well, we're all dying. It's like, yeah, that is true, but it's not quite the same as when you're told that your life is going to be shorter. Or, well, we could all get hit by a bus at any time. Again, true. But I know for most people, you're not thinking about, oh, that's going to happen to me any moment. That's going to happen to me. You're not thinking of that. But when you're told that your life expectancy is shorter now, it is a reality, and you do think of that, and that bus can come anytime, and so it is very different. So when people say those kinds of things, even though you're meaning well, people are meaning well when they say that, they're trying to comfort you.
They're trying to comfort themselves.
They're trying to comfort themselves because they're uncomfortable with the idea of death. And to be able to talk about it, I think it's important that we realize that you can talk about it, and that it shouldn't be something that we're so scared of that we can't talk about it, because that's, the phobia, I think, for people on both ways. Then, you come to be more relaxed, and I think the hospice volunteers, because they do deal with it. You know, you've been a volunteer too, and you deal with death, and so it's like a part of what happens, and it's much easier than avoiding it and being afraid, because you're afraid of your own mortality. You know, and I know I've been on that side too, and I've been around people that were dying, even before my husband, and I thought, I don't know what to say, you know, and I would feel kind of uncomfortable, but I did want to be there with them. And so, you know, it is kind of a difficult thing, obviously, for all of us.
But I think what you're saying is we all make it too complicated.
Yeah.
And the best thing we can do is just say, you're here, I'm here.
Yeah. What can we talk about?
Can we talk about it?
And, you know, I've found, which has been very helpful for me, is I actually make quite a few jokes about things. And sometimes people around me, even the volunteers, have, you know, had that kind of effect. But it's just
Well, frankly,
kind of,
I'm glad you haven't died on camera.
yeah, I really, I thought, I got to hold on until the end of the show.
Give us 30 minutes at least, will you?
No problem. I'm glad I could help out here.
Well, Tammy, thanks so much for coming here.
Thank you.
And taking the time.
Thanks.
And letting us be with you for this time.
I feel this has been a privilege to be able to talk, and if it helps in any way, then that's wonderful. So, thank you. And I thank Cindy for coming.
Thank you too, Cindy.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Thank you for being with us today. My name is Richard Ewald. This is a show of the Brattleboro Area Hospice. Join us next time too. Thank you.
It's like,
Every day is a sparkly day.
oh, the
She
more
has
sparkle, the
shoes,
better.
Sparkly tops, sparkly bags.
I'm toned down.
Life
I'm
is
toned
just,
down
life
today.
is to sparkle.
Yeah,
And-
so it's like having those, you know, it's like having that set of china that you only use for special occasions. Every day is a special day, and every day is a bling day.
You know,
It's so
And
great.
I
go
actually
in
have a
and
tiara that I wear sometimes, just to let you know.